The reigning WCW Tag Team Champion walk into the ECW arena and spit on the belt? The answer to that question would launch one of the greatest characters in ECW history. Yes, we're talking about Cactus Jack. Baby! What's up, guys? It's your buddy, your pal, Mr. Danny Deathwish. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the greatest characters in ECW and one of the greatest characters of all time, Cactus Jack. We're going to be talking about his run through WCW, then we're going to be talking about his rise in ECW. Before Mankind, before Hell in a Cell, before ECW, there was Cactus Jack. Mick Foley made his name in Texas and learned his craft in Japan. He developed into one of wrestling's toughest performers. He was an incredible storyteller, he had incredible promos, and he's willing to sacrifice everything. But it didn't just start in ECW. It started before that in WCW. Mick Foley had a brief stint in WCW, then returned as Cactus Jack in 1991. When Cactus Jack returned, he immediately targeted one of WCW's biggest stars, Sting. He famously emerged from a giant gift box to attack him, and their feud produced several physical matches, most notably the Falls Count Anywhere match at Beach Blast 1992, a match that helped establish Foley as a legitimate national level threat, and Cactus Jack proved he could hang with one of WCW's biggest stars. Then he moved on to having a feud with Paul Orndorff, and this was a hard-hitting feud with Mr. Wonderful. Their matches are rough, physical, and built around Cactus Jack's willingness to fight anywhere. The feud culminated in a Falls Count Anywhere match at Super Brawl 3, and Cactus Jack gets a victory. His reputation in WCW, his reputation as being WCW's resident wildman, continued to grow. Then became one of my favorite feuds in WCW, his feud with Big Van Vader. Vader was one of the most brutal wrestlers in the world, and Cactus Jack was able to absorb his unbelievable punishment. In April 1993, Vader powerbombed Cactus Jack onto the concrete floor, and WCW turned it into the infamous Lost in Cleveland storyline. And later that year, they collided in the Texas Death Match at Halloween Havoc 1993. The feud transforms Cactus Jack. Fans begin respecting him not because he wins every match, but what he was willing to do to survive. By 1994, Cactus Jack moves in the WCW Tag Team division, first along Max Payne, and later along Kevin Sullivan. Their opponents were the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Saggs. This feud produces some of WCW's wildest tag team brawls. Spring Stampede 1994, they had a Chicago street fight, and Cactus Jack takes another huge fall on the concrete. And May 22nd, 1994, at Slamboree, Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan defeat the Nasty Boys, becoming the WCW World Tag Team Champions. Think about where Mick Foley is at this point. He battled Sting. He survived Vader. He's gone to war with the Nasty Boys, becoming the WCW Tag Team Champions. He's not an unknown independent wrestler looking for exposure. He's an established WCW star, a reigning champion, and barely 1 month later, he was going to walk into the ECW arena. That's where this story really began. June 1994, Mick Foley's still under guaranteed contract and still one half of the World Tag Team Champions in WCW, yet somehow he's walking into the ECW arena. This is because there was a rare talent exchange between WCW and ECW that made it possible, something almost unheard of in wrestling at the time. There's lots of crossovers with promotions these days, look at Forbidden Door with AEW, but in 1994, this was shocking. This was all set to take place at Hostile City Showdown on June 24th, 1994. Cactus Jack was going to make his debut in a dream match against the one and only, the homicidal, genocidal, suicidal Sabu. These were two of the most dangerous men in the wrestling world. And Paul Heyman knew this wasn't just another match. It was a collision between the wrestling worlds. Cactus Jack was still under contract with WCW, and he was still one half of the Tag Team Champions. And through that rare agreement between ECW and WCW, he was able to cross enemy lines for one night. Seeing an active WCW champion in the ECW arena made it feel almost impossible in 1994, and that alone made this match must-see TV. But Paul Heyman knew this wasn't simply a match, and he tried to promote it as something else. He sold it like a real-life disaster waiting to happen. On ECW television, he actually begged fans not to come. He claimed that he feared one of these men wouldn't even walk out alive. It was reverse psychology at its finest, and the more Heyman warned people away, the more they had to see it. And Sabu wasn't just another wrestler. Sabu had become an ECW phenomenon. He's promoted as the most dangerous man in professional wrestling. Cactus Jack had also built his career on chaos and violence. The story became simple. Was Sabu the future of hardcore wrestling, or was Cactus Jack really the king of hardcore? Foley and Sub, when Mick Foley arrived in the ECW arena backstage, he was barely able to communicate with Sabu. Sabu liked to protect his mysterious character by speaking very little. Foley had almost no idea what was going to happen in the match. These two men simply had to go out there and trust each other. Mick Foley later said on Foley's podcast that fans genuinely believed they was about to witness a murder because of both these men's reputation. The match lasted about 13 minutes. It was absolute chaos. Fans immediately noticed something weird about Mick Foley. His ear was missing. Just 3 months earlier, in a match against Vader in Munich, Germany, Foley's ear was ripped off. The scar was still fresh, and making Cactus Jack look even more dangerous. This match lives up to every expectation and becomes one of ECW's defining early classics. Think about this for a minute. A reigning WCW champion walking into the ECW arena to face the most dangerous man in ECW in a match that Paul Heyman warned that he feared that both of these men might not walk out alive. That's why this wasn't just a wrestling match. This was the wrestling match of the 1990s, and it was a huge thing, and that's why we're still talking about it today. The cameras are rolling backstage, and Foley holds the WCW World Tag Team Championship, talks about how much the championship means to him, years of sacrifice, years of pain. Then he quietly says, "No more," and spits on the championship and throws it on the ground. Foley later admits that he was probably going to get fired eventually. He didn't think it would happen that fast. But it did, because Ric Flair and WCW management learned of the tape and were reportedly furious. And weeks later, Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan lose the WCW Tag Team Championships to Pretty Wonderful. At Fall Brawl 1994, Foley loses the Loser Leaves WCW match to Kevin Sullivan, and his WCW career was over. But he had a new home at ECW. See, Paul Heyman sees something different. He doesn't just see a hardcore wrestler, he sees one of wrestling's greatest storytellers. Cactus Jack officially joins ECW and fans embrace him because he's authentic, his promos feel real, and every match feels dangerous. ECW gives the creative freedom to Foley that he's been searching for. Every feud made Cactus Jack an even bigger star. Every scar became part of his legacy. And every chair shot built his reputation, and every sacrifice earned him the respect of the ECW faithful. And by 1995, Cactus Jack had become one of the faces of ECW. And over the next few years, from 1994 to 1995, Cactus Jack would become involved in some of the most important feuds in ECW history. He battled the legendary Terry Funk in a feud that helped define hardcore. He would mentor and team with Mikey Whipwreck to capture the ECW Tag Team Championships. He'd wage a brutal war with the Sandman, pushing the limits of violence. And he would challenge the heart and soul of ECW and Tommy Dreamer, setting the stage for the unforgettable anti-hardcore revolution. Together, these rivalries would transform Cactus Jack from a hardcore icon into one of the greatest storytellers in professional wrestling. Years later in Foley's podcast, Mick Foley stated that the work as Cactus Jack and ECW in Japan represented some of the best character work he ever did. This is coming from a man who created a character like Mankind and Dude Love, and that's remarkable praise. Next time, we're looking at one of the greatest feuds in hardcore wrestling history, Cactus Jack versus Terry Funk. The established legend against the man quickly becoming the face of hardcore. This feud would eventually take them halfway around from the ECW arena, halfway around the world to the King of the Death Match. If you like this video, please give me a like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video. And check out the feud between Cactus Jack and Terry Funk next video. Remember, my friends, if you want to be hardcore, you gotta live hardcore. Stay hardcore, my friends. See you guys.